All right, everybody, you know what time it is. Team USA bringing home the gold again, men's and women's. Shout out to the women's team as well. We're going to talk all about what happened in an absolutely epic gold medal game, talk about the Celtics and their overall experience in the Olympics, and then we're going to have a little bit of fun here. I'm really excited for this segment. We're going to try to figure out the way too early Team USA 28 roster. How many Celtics are going to make it? Any? I don't know. Stick around. Let's find out. This is Green with Envy. Let's lock in. What up? What up? What up? Welcome into another Olympic edition of Green with Envy. As always, this is your boy Will Weir checking in. How you doing? How you living? Joining me today, as he does each and every time, my best friend, co-host, and the coach of our podcast, the one and only Greg Manakis. Greg, what is good? Team USA hangs on and takes back the gold medal from France on their home court. How you doing?
I'm feeling good, man. I'm feeling good. Our guy JT got some run. The women's team pulled it off. I thought that was a great game to tune into, women's basketball, although they made the huge mistake, obviously, of not bringing Caitlin Clark to these Olympics. I still think they showed out. It was really cool to see Asia Wilson kind of getting her moment. Gabby Williams, UConn alum, doing her thing for the France side. It was just really, I think women's basketball represented itself very well, even without Caitlin Clark.
That was an awesome game, man. And I admittedly I only tuned in for the fourth quarter because USA women, first of all, have been so dominant. I think this is now 6 or 7 straight gold medals, 61 straight wins in the Olympics. I honestly just kind of was like, yeah, this is gonna be another gold medal, no problem. All of a sudden, my phone starts blowing up around halftime with like, hey, are you watching this? You locked in? And I had a fantastic time watching the end of this game. And I think this is something I'm leaving this Olympics with in general is just how much I love international basketball. I think it's so much fun. And I honestly wish it happened. There was a little bit more. I know Adam Silver's mentioned there might be some FIBA NBA crossover. Listen to, I can't remember what podcast, but apparently this is something that David Stern used to always do where he'd like mention it, but it never really had any legs or traction. We'll see. Now that the international game is growing so much, maybe there is some added element that can be brought. But whether it's the kind of, wonky FIBA rules, which some of which I really like, the pace of play, just not having the flow of all of these games, whether it's the women's games that I've watched and the men's games too, the flow of these games is so much better. I know we got to have the commercial breaks and everybody's trying to make money and get whatever, but how much more enjoyable, just from like a pure basketball standpoint, is the pace of these games and the way that we don't have, like, we're going to get into Team USA here. Those moments weren't broken up by all of these drawn out timeouts. Like, it was just pure basketball that we got to watch. And I think that added to what we saw the other day.
Yeah, what rule do you think you like the best that's different? Because for me, I think the obvious one that stands out is being able to knock the ball off the rim. I
Yeah.
think that's the best one. That just like makes it so much more fun for little moments. Like even we'll talk about Tatum here in a second, but he had a big play off of a rebound where he knocked the ball off the rim. Sorry, off of a free throw where he knocked the ball off the rim. Wemby had a couple big
Yeah.
moments both on offense and defense.
One of which
So
was a
that
very clear goaltender that they just did not call, which I thought was hilarious.
But that's the thing. It's not goaltending.
Well, there is, isn't it still if it's above the cylinder? If it, you can knock it off, but the one I'm talking about, like the dunk Wemby had at the end, I think that there is still a way that there, like, goaltending exists. It's just a lot looser. Because like KD got
Yeah,
called for a
no, I
goaltend
think
at
they
the end
talked
of
about that. They talked about that one on the broadcast, and they said that it was a legal play.
that still was legal. Okay, so I mean, I'm with you though. I think that's the number one rule. That is one that I definitely enjoy. I also like just like let's get rid of, like, I know we've complained before about Joe Mazzulla not calling enough timeouts, because if you have them, use them. But if we just in general had less timeouts, which I don't know how many timeouts. I mean it's a shorter game as well, so that plays into it.
Which I also kinda like. I like the 40 minutes versus 48 minutes. 48 minutes
Well, yeah,
sometimes can seem super long.
These games were awesome. These games were like 2 hours in like less than 2 hours, and you're like, "This is." I had a great time. I think this is part of the argument that soccer fans will make, right? Is because like I know I'm locked in for an hour 45 unless this goes to extra time or PKs or whatever, and like I know there's another 30 minutes, right? But it's like because there's no commercial, because the pace of play, everything just keeps moving. Like it was just a lot more enjoyable. Um, I've always kind of been a fan of what do you think about the jump ball rule? As far as like I kind of like the possession arrow more than I like the jump balls, where it's like because it's like really cool. Isaiah Thomas tied up Rudy Gobert in like an NBA game. Cool, we're gonna do a
Mhm.
jump ball for this. Like I kind of like the possession arrow. I don't know. That's always been something that I've liked. That I know obviously college uses. I don't know how you feel about that one. But yeah, I think you nailed it. The goaltending call or the ability to basically goaltend is by far the number one rule that I wish the NBA would bring over.
Yeah, so the FIBA goaltending rule, I got it pulled up here, is once the ball touches the rim, it's considered live. So the moment it touches the rim, anybody on
Yeah.
either side can hit the ball in or hit the ball out.
I mean, dude, one thing you noticed was, for like Serbia, Nikola Jokic was actually because he was pretty good at that. So like he actually became more of a defensive weapon
Mhm,
because that was a skill set that he was good at. And like for USA players, you can tell for the most part there's still a little tentativeness because they're just so programmed that it's the
mhm.
goaltend, right? Like I know LeBron, I think maybe Tatum had one. There's a couple guys who did eventually like adjust to it and made a couple of those plays. But you see how natural it is for guys like Wemby and guys like Jokic that more, grew up with like that being the way that they can play.
Right, and in the
So I think that
NBA,
would be
we've
super
got
interesting.
the best athletes in the world in the NBA, like,
Right.
imagine Derrick Jones Jr., like, being able to have his role on defense just be to fly
A
to the
whole new
rim
skill
and
set.
knock the ball yeah, I mean, a lot of guys would play more than they do just because of their pure athleticism, and I think it would make at the rim plays a lot more fun.
Yeah, 100%. But just overall, man, I'm gonna miss this tournament. This tournament was a lot of fun, up and down. Even the games outside of just USA games, like the a lot of the Germany games, Serbia, seeing what Team Canada had. I really enjoyed this tournament. But let's talk a little bit about this game here. So USA takes home the gold, 98-87. Steph Curry, LeBron ends up being the MVP of the tournament. I apparently Stephon Marbury has some issues with this, but I don't really see how you can have an issue the way LeBron has led this team from start to finish. And then these last two games, man, you and I have been long time Steph Curry stands dating back to his Davidson days. I still maintain there is nothing more that excites me in a basketball game than when Steph Curry gets hot. I think it's the funnest thing I've ever watched, like just in the moment, like even games when LeBron takes over, or when you've seen, these moments from Kobe, or I didn't really see too many of the Michael Jordan moments live, so most of it's like reliving that through YouTube. But like when Steph Curry gets hot, there's just a different energy, whether you're in the building or you're at home watching, it's just different. And Steph Curry to end this game, especially over these last two games, going 8 of 13 and 9 of 14 the last two games from three. Unbelievable, man. Unbelievable. And that dagger, the dagger with the double team. And have you seen the still shots of how open KD and LeBron are to his left? One of my favorite freeze frames. Just an unbelievable moment for Steph to lock up the gold medal in the way that he did.
Yeah, even Danielle, who's not a basketball fan, as she was watching it, she was like, "This isn't normal, right?" And then she also mentioned the screenshots. She was like, "Have you seen the pictures of how open Kevin Durant and LeBron were when
Yeah.
Steph Curry took that shot?" But yeah, he described it in the post game as an avalanche. You want to call it momentum, whatever it is, Curry flurry, whatever you wanted to describe it
Ooh,
as.
Curry
It
Flurry. I like
it
that.
is different when Steph Curry is on one of his roles, and it's been that way, unfortunately, as Celtics fans, we saw that happen in the NBA finals where he just took over and there's nothing
Right.
you can do. You can send two guys to the ball with length and
Much
he's
more
going to
fun rooting for it than it is
oh,
dreading it like we had to a couple years ago.
yeah, it was great being able to root for it, definitely. But yeah, being able to see him rise to that moment when all these amazing players are on the floor, and it seemed like Team USA needed somebody to put the cape on. Nobody really knew who it was going to be, and then they went to that LeBron and Steph two-man game. where Steph was the inverted screener and he got a couple wide open shots off of that. Cooked my boy Yabu on one of those for, I think it was the first 3-pointer. But yeah, that 2-man game was unstoppable. And Steph Curry just rose above all the other great players on the court. He was the greatest in the biggest moment.
Yeah, it was super fun to watch that. And once again, it was really kind of the old heads, right? This was their tournament. This was their moment. And only 3 guys to play over 30 minutes for Team USA yesterday: Steph, LeBron, KD. And in different times, and especially, I mean, obviously to the end, like I said, Steph Curry brought them home. KD had a few moments where it felt like USA might be dragging, and he hit, a pretty clutch 3. LeBron was kind of the steady factor throughout. He yesterday 14 points, 10 assists, 6 rebounds. Both he and Curry each had 5 turnovers, so there was definitely some spots in there where you're like, it's just because France was just hanging around just enough that there was a little bit of doubt. Like, I don't know, man. If France can just get on a quick run, they might have a chance here. And I will say, from the French perspective, I love that Wemby had his best game. Not that anything was going to change my opinion about this, but so all in on Wemby for the future. Wemby just loves the moment, and you can see it. And the way he started the game, he was like, he wasn't going to get off to a slow start. He came out, he attacked Joel Embiid. He basically made Steve Kerr bench Joel Embiid and go for AD, who I thought was really good in this game as well. He was a big reason for the USA pulling this out. But watching Wemby step up the way he did, and then the emotion he showed after the game, there's no way you can't leave this just being even more of a fan of Wemby than all of us already were.
Yeah, it's really cool seeing, 20-year-old future of basketball in the biggest moment also rise to the occasion. But I want to talk about Yabu, man, because, we talked about a little bit before the game about how you had tweeted out, you tweeted out that should the Celtics give him another look? And a lot of people were just like, no, that's ridiculous, and talking shit because clearly they just hadn't watched.
Yeah.
And they just were thinking about Yabu from 2018 or whenever he was on the Celtics. That dunk on LeBron,
That was nuts.
or as Danielle described it today, when the guy hit the shot when LeBron fell down. I was like, that is the least exciting way to describe what happened.
Right.
When the guy hit the shot when LeBron fell down. Yeah, that was Yabu, and Yabu was, the second best player for the French team, maybe the best player, most consistent player throughout.
He's getting MVP chance.
Yeah, I mean, the French crowd recognized it, how great he was, where Rudy Gobert just, we don't like Rudy Gobert and he kind of sucks, but he's still an NBA player, defensive player of the year, and he was just on the bench. It was either Yabu or Gobert or Lasor or Gobert, and it was just Gobert on the bench and Yabu and Lasor were in the game. And it was just really cool to see Yabu, and I think he's going to get an NBA chance after this, but he's probably making a good amount of money over in Spain. So,
yeah, I mean, I'm sure he's doing fine and he's enjoying his life and he's doing great, but I just can't imagine there's not going to be. I don't know how you can watch what we just did and against, we talked about this in the last episode, like he's had to play against the teams that have the most NBA competition. So he's played against Canada, played against Germany, and played against the US. So it's not as if you can just chalk it up to, oh, well, he just played against other international guys. Like he's playing against all the dudes, the top dudes in the NBA that are in this tournament and the teams that have multiple NBA guys. And he's holding his own. So I to the point that we talked about with Yabu last episode, I don't understand how someone just wouldn't give this guy a look. We'll see, because I don't know if he wants to go fight for a 14th, 15th spot, which is what he's going to have to do, at least initially. As opposed to being, a starter in Spain and being very comfortable. So, we'll have to see. He's 28 years old. So,
who would you rather have? Let me give you a couple names, or maybe at least one name, and then we can kind of discuss. If you're LeBron, right, and you just go up against Yabu in this final and he dunks on you and he plays really well, and you look at your team and you've got Rui Hachimura or Yabusele, like who would you rather have on the court with you? It's not like clear cut that it's Rui.
Right. I mean, I think the answer is both. It's like, well, if you're the Lakers, why wouldn't you try to go get Yabusele? Right. You know what I mean? Like why wouldn't you have them compete? Because I don't think, like,
or if you're the Phoenix Suns, who you just need depth.
Yeah. I mean, there's no reason that I would look at this and not be like, because like I said in the last episode, I think Yabusele's role is that he's going to be matchup determinant when it gets to the playoffs. But why wouldn't you want that option? right? Like,
Mhm.
why wouldn't you want to say, okay, I don't think Rui's working right now. Let's put Yabusele in.
Or the
Or,
Thunder.
if we're, yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of teams that I think there's no reason why you wouldn't want to have this option based on what we just saw. And it's not as if, how sometimes you watch the international team, it's just like, oh, well, and this is partially like the Tatum issue with like Team USA, where when you watch him internationally, you're like, oh, that's cool that he had a great tournament. He's not going to get that same opportunity. Yabusele was playing a role on this France team. It wasn't like, let's get the ball to Yabusele and clear out, and he's going to take and hit, shots that he's never going to get the opportunity to. Like, he was playing within a team, within a system. Like, this is very replicable to like what you could do on an NBA team. Whereas like that's like the issue, like I said, that's the issue for Tatum is like Tatum was struggling to kind of find like, how do I be the guy off the ball? Don't have the ball in my hands. What's my role on this team? I think there's no everything Yabusele was doing, in my opinion, could translate. So I hope he gets a shot, man. Other than rooting for Team USA, I think rooting for Yabusele was like my second favorite thing about the basketball portion of the Olympics.
Yeah, he was great, and I really want him to be on a contender this upcoming year because I think he showed his versatility, and I know I kind of like jokingly brought up Zion and needing somebody to guard Zion in the last
Mhm.
episode. I guess it wasn't a joke; it was more just like a long shot of Zion staying healthy. But if you're the Thunder, like I know the Thunder just beat the Pelicans, but Zion didn't play. Right. And they
Mhm.
don't have anybody that can really guard a Zion type. And you look around the league at other teams like the Suns, I mentioned them. They don't have anybody that could guard Zion. Like you're gonna put freaking Wainwright in the game to guard Zion. Like it's not happening, right? So I think he would make a lot of sense for the Thunder. I think he'd make a lot of sense for the Suns. I don't see the Celtics having a spot for him. I would love to see him back in Boston, but I don't think he cracks the
I mean,
rotation in
they've
Boston.
got that last roster spot that they are leaving flexible. So there could
But he
be
but
a
he's not gonna
world,
go to the
but
Celtics to sit at the end of the
right,
bench.
right,
If
right.
he
That's
comes
not
to the
gonna make
NBA, he
sense.
wants to play.
For
Yeah, and I
sure, for
think
sure. That's
he
not
would
gonna make
play in the
sense.
Thunder rotation. I think he would play in the Suns rotation. So I'd like to see him get an opportunity because it would be super fun just to see him back in the NBA
Yeah.
because of Olympic basketball. That would be the sole reason that Yabu got an NBA contract because of the spotlight that he was just in, which is why I
Mhm.
think international basketball is so cool and why I think this Olympic tournament was just so dope to watch.
Yeah, 100%. Couldn't agree more. And we'll see what happens. I would love to see Yabu back in the NBA. Give the Dancing Bear a chance to dance in the league. That'd be fun. But let's talk about so now that the Olympics are over, USA's got their gold. Jason Tatum. I mean, listen, ups and downs and not the greatest tournament, but some of it not his own fault. But man, the resume Tatum is building right now. I hope this isn't getting lost, because once again, I said this last episode, I feel like this should be a bigger moment where Tatum is now 4-time All NBA, 3-time first team All NBA. He's got his NBA championship. He's been to the finals twice. He's now got 2 gold medals, and he's 26 years old. Like, that's an insane resume for a 26-year-old with all of those things that we just listed out. So let's just talk a little bit in general about the Celtics in the Olympics. You mentioned in the gold medal game, Tatum. I think he was the was he the first? I think him and Ant were the first substitutions. So he was
I
first
think
off the
it was
bench,
him,
first or
Ant,
second off
and
the bench.
AD came they
Yeah,
all 3 of them came in together, yeah.
yeah. So first group of substitutions off the bench. So it wasn't sitting around like, is he going to play? Is he not going to play? First substitutions, he gets in there. So he was in there for 11 minutes, had 2 points, 3 rebounds, and a steal. Drew Holiday played considerable minutes in this gold medal game. He had 19 minutes, 6 points, and 4 assists for him. Played a decent amount in that fourth quarter as well. This was the DMP game for Derek White, and that's something we called out on the last episode. We were like, just looking at this French team, they're going to play big. They're going to try to be physical. They don't really have any guards that are going to make a ton of sense for Derek White. It's probably going to be him and Tatum literally flipping spots. That's basically what happened between the Serbia game and this game. But overall, Greg, we have 3 Celtics. Quarter of this USA gold team is from the Celtics. Like, and there should be a 4th guy on this team. Like, that's really insane to think about. So just give me kind of some of your general thoughts about the Celtics in these Olympics and what you're taking away from it.
First off, shout out to JT for having the baby with LMA.
Yeah.
You know, those
No official
pictures came
announcement,
out.
but yeah, looks like JT's a pop of too.
That's great for him. So the summer of JT continues with that big dub. Um, I mean, it's definitely a black mark on Tatum's resume to some degree that he wasn't able to be a consistent part of this team. Overall, I think people are gonna kind of just gloss over it looking back on his career. 15, 20 years from now, no one's going to be like, oh, but he barely played in the second one. Well, he won his first gold medal when he was the second leading scorer and was a huge part of that team. So I think it's safe to say Jason Tatum can play in a gold medal game and be just fine. I saw somebody tweet out like, oh, Jason Tatum's like getting Make-A-Wish so he gets a gold medal. It's like, bro, he actually won the gold medal last time. So let's relax with that. So I think Tatum,
very prisoner of the moment reaction. Some of these,
but that's just the world we live in right now. But I think JT, I think hopefully he's going to learn from this experience, right? He mentioned how it was difficult for him to do it. He talked about it afterwards. He called it very humbling. After the first time he sat against Serbia, he said it allowed him to kind of feel for the guys on his own team that don't get to play throughout the regular season. So maybe it will make him a better teammate overall, though I wouldn't say anyone say JT's a bad teammate, but I think being able to now understand what it's like to not get in the game after you're going your whole life playing probably as much as
you made this point during the first one. Like, has this ever happened? Like, I don't know if this must have been such a confusing feeling. Like, he's been, what is he was like the number 2 or 3 prospect coming out of high school. And then we talked about this when Gordon Hayward retired. He was starting in that was his first ever NBA game when the Gordon Hayward injury happened. He was starting that game with, he jumped Jaylen Brown already from the start as far as like jumping into that starting lineup. So he never mind not playing. When was the last time he didn't start a game other than maybe the All-Star game? Like, that's the only time that he really hasn't. And so, yeah, this is definitely a different experience. And Brian Windhorst had an article that came out today and we're going to get into this. This will play into our next segment here in a little bit, where we try to predict the 2028 USA team. And Tatum mentioned he's not going to, right now, he just didn't want to make any rush decisions about how this would affect his decision for 2028. But he does mention, like about it being a tough experience, being different. It's a learning moment. It's humbling. And, it sounds like he was getting blown up by people at home who were like, dude, like, what the fuck is going on?
Well, his mom tweeted about it.
You're not. Yeah, his mom tweeted about it. And he mentions in the article here how it was kind of tough getting like all of this messaging from back home. And yet he's trying to remain kind of like the team guy. We talked about how body language wise, it seemed like there was some sulking, which it's hard not to. He's human. Like, it's not saying it's a bad thing. It's a pretty normal thing to see, because he wasn't expecting to be like Tyrese Halliburton was very clearly cool with and expecting to be the cheerleader on this team, right? And he was all about, he even tweeted out, when you get an A on the group project, like, and didn't do anything. Like, he was very, very self-aware. I thought that was good from Tyrese Halliburton. And so for Tatum, it just was a unique experience. And he mentioned people from back home saying what we've been projecting, like, hey, maybe this is the chip on the shoulder. All of a sudden we get Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. Like, man, fuck Team USA. Like, we're going to show everybody that this isn't a fluke, that, we're 2 guys that deserve to be on that. We need to be leading, not even on, leading that 2028 team. And so I do think it's going to be really interesting how Tatum, if he does choose to take this as fuel into the next year and see what it does. And, hopefully it fixes that jump shot, because
that's what I wanted to say, because with Tatum, the last point that I hope he takes away from these Olympics is that he needs to figure out how to shoot the basketball again, and that he figures out somebody other than Drew Hanlon to help him with this shot. I know I mentioned this on a previous pod, but Drew Hanlon's not a shooting coach. He's a skill development trainer who like teaches guys how to have a bag, basically. Jason Tatum needs a dedicated shooting coach to fix the jump shot, because it's different. It doesn't look the same. He doesn't have confidence in it right now. He needs somebody to come in and help him tweak that jump shot to get it back to what it used to look like 3-4 years ago, because it doesn't look like the same shot. I don't know if it's his body's too tight or whatever it is. Maybe he just needs to be more like go to the TB12 pliability method. Whatever it is, he needs to figure out a way to get his shooting pocket back to what it used to be. It's always been a slow jump shot, but now it's like deliberate. And I think you described it as a set shot recently on a recent podcast. And that's what it looks like. It doesn't look like a jump shot anymore. It looks like a set shot, and he needs to figure it out. But overall, JT, you got your gold medal. Very happy about it. The other 2 guys, Drew Holiday, I think the biggest thing that stood out to me with Drew in these Olympics is we talked about the level of trust that coaches have in certain players, and that Drew, no matter what team he's on, because of the elite role that he plays, and he's the best in the world at doing it, every single coach is going to trust Drew Holiday to be in the game on both ends of the court. He was hitting his jump shot again, hitting the 3-pointer, didn't turn the ball over too frequently in these Olympics, and was the best defender on the court for every second he was on the court.
Yeah, Drew Holiday is the glue of Team USA, right? Like there wasn't a lineup out there where you were like, oh yeah, Drew Holiday shouldn't be out there, right? He fit with every lineup that you could put out there. Just to put a bow on the Jason Tatum point here, I saw this from our guy Jason Timpf over at the Volume, who we've had on the podcast before. Between the Olympic Games and the exhibition games, I jokingly asked if Tatum would hit a jump shot before we got done with these set of games. 0 of 16 on all jump shots. Anything not directly at the basket, 0 for 16. That is tough. And like I said, I'm going to be curious to see what happens when training camp opens for the Celtics, but hopefully he is enjoying that. But then to your point with Drew Holiday, just this guy was made for USA basketball and connecting everything. And it's why he was so good for the Celtics this past season, right? When you think about trying to make KP and Jalen and Tatum work, and and then Derek White's kind of a similar version of that as well. They do slightly different things, but they mold really well as far as bringing all of these pieces together. And obviously, the gold medal game just wasn't Derek White's game, which is fine. And that was the other part of Derek White over Jaylen Brown, if you want to look at it that way, is that, I was probably surprised that this was the only DNP Derek White got the entire run. But it was always going to be more acceptable, right, than Jaylen Brown. And when JB and Tatum were getting DNPs, it was going to be a story. When Derek White gets a DNP, no one's going to mention anything, right, with this type of talent. So, but I think for Derek White, he just feels like a guy that's just living in the moment, just loving, just soaking it all up. And so, I think this leads us to kind of like where we wanted to go with this podcast here and try to predict the way too early Team USA for 2028. And I think this kind of starts with the holdovers that we're going to have from this team. So, Greg, I think we should operate with the premise. Now, we've joked about it, and I think it could be a reality because it's going to be in LA in 2028. I think there's a chance LeBron is on this team, but let's operate that LeBron, Steph, and KD will not be on this team. Let's just eliminate them based on age to start with. And let's start with trying to get who are the players from this current team that will go to 28, and then we'll try to kind of figure out who else is going to fill in those gaps. So when I'm looking at this team right now, I think there's 4 guys that I feel pretty good about being back on this team. I think Bam's a guarantee. I think Booker's a guarantee. I think Ant Edwards is a guarantee. And I'm going to put Derek White. I think Derek White, for the connectivity pieces that we've been talking about, I think that he's going to be a guy that transfers over. Tatum is an easy one as well, but because of, this was a rough time. I have him as a question mark, and I have Halliburton as a question mark from this team. AD I ruled out because he's going to be 35 and injuries. I just can't imagine that that's a likely scenario that he's back. Embiid, I think he's already made comments about maybe playing for Cameroon and France. I don't know. He's just trolling. I don't know. Fuck Embiid. I don't want him on the team. So I took Embiid out of the mix. And so that's where I'm left right now to start with. Bam, Booker, and Derek White. And then I've got question marks next to Tatum and Hallie. What do you think about that?
I wouldn't say Derek White's a shoe-in. I would say Bam, Booker, and Ant Edwards for sure. I just think there's too many guys that are like in the Derek White mold that could come up and be kind of younger versions of Derek White that might just surpass him. He might be at his peak athleticism and everything right now. So this might be the best Derek White that we see in his career, right? So I would put a question mark next to him. I love Bam. If there's any way the Celtics could figure out a way to get Bam Adebayo, I would do that in a heartbeat. Booker's I think he's one of the 2 big winners from these Olympics because he proved that he can play a role, and he's such a versatile offensive threat where he was forced to play on the ball with the Suns early in his career because they didn't have anybody else, but he's a natural 2 guard. Like he's probably the purest movement 2 guard in the mold of a Reggie Miller or Rip Hamilton, like those classic 2 guards that you think of, Ray Allen's. Devin Booker is probably the most prototypical guy that's a two guard,
Yeah.
which is why he worked so well.
Well, you also think about the last like 4 years of his career, right? Where they brought in Chris Paul and then they brought in KD. And so him playing, like you said, naturally he's kind of used to playing off ball because he is that prototypical. He's gotten the reps to handle the ball by necessity. And so now he's a great combination of both of those things. But that's what makes him assimilating to this team versus Tatum's role his entire life, where
Mhm.
it really hasn't been that. Now, I think the interesting part about the Tatum factor is maybe there is a little something that he can take as a silver lining that, hey, instead of, relying on Tatum being a point center at times, maybe we have the ball in, Derek White's hands and there's some off ball screens that because Tatum did set, I thought Tatum off ball wasn't terrible. I think you could tell it was unfamiliar, but I think there were some potentially, options that the Celtics can use in limited. I mean, you're going to want Tatum to have the ball in his hands. Let's just be real, he's your best player. But I think there could be some things they take away from it. But I think to the Booker point, this is why it was a great fit for him on this team. He can play on ball, but he's now in the last since they've had Chris Paul in Phoenix, since they've had Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal, him playing with those other great players where he's going to be off the ball and have to make himself a weapon. It was a lot easier for him to fit in with the LeBron, with KD, with Steph than it was for a guy like Tatum.
Yeah, and I think going back to Tatum for a quick second, hopefully he learns from this experience and sees the way, behind the scenes hanging out with KD and Booker and Steph
Mhm.
in the way that they know how to just move on the court and find their little pockets of space. Like Tatum, he could learn a lot from playing off the ball and coming off of pin downs and curling off of screens and getting into that little mid-range spot that Booker and KD are so good at getting to. There's no reason why Tatum, if he just quickens up his release just a little bit, can't get to that point. But going back to the 2028 team, another guy that I thought was a huge winner, even though he didn't play that well, was Ant Edwards, because it seemed
Mhm.
like everybody that posted a picture on social media, it had Ant Edwards in it. Like Drew Holiday's entire Instagram post that he had like 4 pictures of Anthony Edwards. Like it seems like everybody just loves Anthony Edwards. All the teammates just like embraced him. Him and
Did you
Kate.
hear him talking about Steph after they were like changing for the medal ceremony? And I think
Yeah,
Steph was taking a video and he was like, "Man, I'm so glad this dude showed up 3 days ago because
yeah,
Steph was so bad leading up to it."
yeah.
I mean, listen, this is when people say, Ant has more aura, or I don't know, I've seen different words used to describe him versus Tatum, whatever. And it's kind of undeniable the charisma that Ant has. Everyone just enjoys seemingly being around him. He just seems to be a joy, and like you said, he's everywhere. And it definitely felt like, and we've talked about this, he was empowered in a way that Tatum wasn't, where, hey, you're out there, man. Like, handle the ball. And like, unless you're deferring to LeBron or KD or Curry, he wasn't deferring to anybody. And at times that was troubling. And I think Kerr towards the end got to a good point of like, all right, this is Ant Edwards is almost, you know, taking over to a fault and he's hurting us. He played
Put
11
Booker
minutes.
in.
But
Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
Booker's
Right.
coming
Like
back in.
exact Booker or Holiday are coming in. Like Ant's not having it tonight, but I do think looking forward to 28, Ant is absolutely along with Booker, Bam, and I Tatum if he chooses to. I think that's the core of the team that you're looking at is the 4 of them if Tatum decides to be a part of it.
For sure. Yeah, and I think Tatum will.
Yeah,
You
so
know,
let's
he
put Tatum on this team then that we're building out here. So right now for 28, we got Bam, we got Booker, we got Ant, we got Tatum. Derek White's a question mark. What about Halliburton? He didn't play much here, but I do think there is something to, and this goes for Derek White as well, that the U.S. does like to try to build as much because that's the international teams for the most part. That's their recipe to beating the U.S. is their continuity and the ability to have guys that have been there multiple times. So I do think that's a huge edge for guys like Halliburton and White to potentially get back on this team in 2028.
Yeah, the one concern with Halliburton is just his lack of physicality on the court. But then, you look at friggin' Patty Mills, and Patty Mills is killing it in FIBA. So who knows? But I think with what the Team USA can put out there, just with the physicality of some of the guards that they've had historically, you would imagine that there might be somebody who's just a better fit. Like defensively, we saw just Derek White, who's
Mhm.
not even like a physical guard, was able to just be more physical than Hallie and was able to play over him because of his defensive prowess. And if Hallie never develops that defensive ability, I don't know that he's like guaranteed a spot. But
Okay.
I think he is in line to be on this team for
For
sure.
sure. For sure. Okay. Let's leave it right now. We got 4 guarantees. White and Halliburton. We'll put them as question marks. And we'll kind of circle back and see if we want to add them here. So we're going to try and build this out here. I've got a list of a couple guys. I've got it broken up into guards, wings, and bigs. And so let's kind of go just like position by position and feel it out here. So let's start with the guards. We've got 4 guys right now, 2 of which are guards. So let's count Booker and Ant as 2 guards that are going to be on this 28 team. And so I've got 5 guards written down here that I think are going to be in consideration for a spot.
Okay,
So we've
can
got,
I pause real quick? Because I
yeah, of
just
course.
realized you don't have this guy as a shoe-in. Considering it's in LA, and if he stays on the Lakers, I think Anthony Davis 100% will be on this team.
Well, so I mentioned it when I was going through it at 35. I just don't know that he's going to be healthy. The man struggles with health, and him at
But I
35
don't
years
think we can
old.
factor in health at this point. I think Anthony Davis will be on the team in 2028 if he's healthy. So I would put him on there
Okay.
because it's
Okay.
in
Well,
LA. It's in LA.
no, I mean, I get that. I just don't believe that AD will be healthy in 4 years to be on this team. We'll add him. I would be. I'll say personally, I'll be very surprised if AD is on this team, not because of his ability, but I just don't imagine in 4 years that he's going to be healthy enough to be on this team. But we'll add him for now, and we'll circle back to it. So I got 5 names here for guards that we could potentially add. We have 2 question marks already for guards right now in Derek White and Tyrese Halliburton. The 5 guards that I thought of, and maybe I'm missing some. If I am, drop a name here. But here's the 5 names that I have that were not currently on Team USA. I've got Donovan Mitchell. I've got Ja Morant. I've got Jalen Brunson, Tyrese Maxey, and Desmond Bane. Anybody that you think I'm missing from consideration?
No, I like all these names. I might sound like a hypocrite here because I just said AD would be on the team, but Donovan Mitchell is the type of guy that I don't think his game is going to age well. So I think Donovan Mitchell, because he's an undersized guard that relies on explosiveness, who's
Mm-hmm.
had injuries in the past, I think like AD, even if he's a lesser version of himself, is still going to be one of the best big USA players, right?
Well, we'll get to the bigs because I think this is why I don't want to rule out your thoughts on AD is because the big man depth is a little gnarly. Like it's not ideal,
Exactly.
and so
Exactly.
that's where I'm like, okay, well, I think we can leave AD as an asterisk or a question mark. Whereas if he's healthy, he's in just based on as far as
There's
right now.
not a lot
There's
of
not a
guys
lot
there.
of depth there.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm with you on that. I think with Donovan Mitchell, it's a little surprising when I think about it. He hasn't been really kind of, I guess it's just injuries time wise that he really hasn't lined up to be in the mix more or discussed more as a Team USA guy over the last 2 Olympics at least.
Well, his issue
And
is he's going to be behind Booker and Ant. So he's not going to go
mhm,
onto that team because he's a 2 guard. He's not a point guard. So
right. So that's the
he's
other
going to go
part.
onto that
Exactly.
team and he's going to look at Booker, who's the starting 2 guard for Team USA as long as he wants to be that, and
Mhm.
Anthony Edwards, who is the next star for Team USA. Donovan Mitchell's not playing over them, so he's not. After what happened to Jason Tatum, if he's looking at this depth, he's looking at those 2 guys in front of him. He's like, I'm not playing over them. Why am I going to go sit on the bench?
No, I think that's a great point. That's why I
Yeah.
think we're probably looking at trying to find 2 point guards here,
Yeah.
right? And this is where it becomes Derek White and Halliburton kind of fit in that mold as well. And then are we looking at Ja Morant? Are you looking at? I think Jalen Brunson is a guy that I would pencil in right now as part of our way too early team. I think Jalen Brunson is somebody that for me, I would predict would be on this team in 28 as of right now. Ja Morant, I think, is really interesting because I think his athleticism. Once again, we were talking about the FIBA rule. Another guy who would be amazing at just coming from the weak side and knocking balls off. And as far as one thing internationally aside from Giannis and a few others, and we saw Yabusele dunk on LeBron. Ja Morant's athleticism is not really out there in the international game. That's a distinct advantage that the U.S. can have over their international opponents. And I can totally imagine Ja Morant having a Vince Carter moment in the Olympics where he just tries to kill somebody midair and go for a dunk that you think he might break his neck on. So I think Ja Morant's an interesting one here. Tyrese Maxey, I think even though he is he's becoming more of a point guard. He still is more of that 2 guard in a point guard's body, right? Like, I think that's kind of his mix. And Desmond Bane is more here for the shooting. Like, I think he can do a lesser version of what we just talked about with Devin Booker, as far as like kind of blending in, fitting in, and providing some shooting. So I think if we're going to rule out Donovan Mitchell, I think Jalen Brunson for me is a guard that's going to get in here. And then, well, first of all, would you push back on Jalen Brunson being a guy that we should add to this 2018?
No, I think he's trending towards being a shoe-in for sure. His thing is going to be, once again, can he hang defensively? He's such a ball dominant guy with the Knicks. I think he's capable, as he's shown, of playing off the ball as well. They run him off so many. They kind of use him like the Sixers used to use Iverson, just how many like Iverson cuts he comes off of and everything. So I think he's definitely trending there. I mean, I'd rather have him over Hallie, you know?
Okay.
I
So
think
let's
with
do
Ja
this.
Morant, the biggest thing with Ja is going to be his shooting. If he can't develop a
Yeah.
consistent 3-point shot, I think that's going to keep him off the team.
Maybe it's a little Dennis Schroeder like, where it's like the closer 3-point line helps him a little bit. You know, I mean, I feel like the way Schroeder plays internationally, I could see Ja Morant playing similarly with a lot more athleticism. Right? Like, I
Yeah,
think there
for
could
sure.
be a version of that. So, all right, let's add Brunson to the team, and we'll circle back and see who we have. So right now, let's say we have, from a guard perspective, Derek White, Halliburton, and Ja Morant are the 3 question marks as far as like another guard that might make the team. That sound fair?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Okay, let's go to the wings right now. So here's who I have listed as potential wings. So, in just looking at who we already have, I would classify Tatum, if we're counting Edwards as a guard. Tatum's the only wing that we really have as a definitive on this team right now. So we probably need at least 2 to 3 guys out of this list here to
Who's replacing
join
LeBron?
this
Who's
roster.
replacing KD?
Yeah, that's kind of what we're looking at right now. And so here's the names that I have. Jaylen Brown, a little contentious. You know, I think that's the obvious choice, but given the history, it's very much a question mark. I've got Mikal Bridges, who played very well in the FIBA tournament last year. I've got Scotty Barnes, Paolo, Cooper Flagg, and Jalen Williams. Anyone else that maybe I haven't thought about, or anyone that jumps out to you? I have 2 guys to me that I think would be obvious as guys to add to this team.
Well, I think Paolo, I'd probably scoot him up to a big. He actually functioned as a big on Team
Yeah, that was a little
USA
bit in
last year.
between as to where to put him. Because I think Paolo's a little. I think he's literally in that Tatum mold, where Tatum was kind. You can kind of put him as a power forward, really, when you're
I
looking
think
at
Paolo's
this.
probably somewhere between Bam and Tatum, just in terms
Yeah,
of like.
but I think Paolo's an easy yes to this team. Is the
Yeah,
point.
yeah,
Yeah,
I would put Paolo on the team
let's
for
put
sure.
Paolo on this. Yeah,
In terms of like not having the issues that this team USA had with like people's reputations getting dragged through the mud when Tatum didn't play, I would probably add Trey Murphy to this.
I thought about him. That was a guy that I thought about as well. Yeah, Trey
I think
Murphy.
he'd be a
Let's add
perfect
him to
role
the.
guy. I think 4
Would you go
years from
Trey
now.
Murphy or Mikal Bridges? Because that's kind of the only reason I didn't add Trey is that I would probably take Bridges over Trey Murphy. I think they are going to functionally perform the same. I don't know. I like the way I think, because I've seen Mikal play in that FIBA tournament last year. I thought he was either the best or second best player on that team. Now, granted, they finished in 4th, but I did think that he performed well. The only reason I didn't put Trey on this list is I probably would choose Mikal over Trey.
Yeah, 4 years from now, it'll be interesting what that discussion looks like.
Different.
So I think Trey Murphy's really improving rapidly. He's one of my favorite kind of slept on players in the league, and I think Mikal Bridges is overrated on both ends of the court. So I do like his game, but I think people hype him up too much. So I would probably go Tatum. I don't think Jalen's going to be on the team. I just think there's too much bad blood there.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be Tatum. I'm going to go Cooper Flagg and Trey Murphy. Those are going to be my guys.
Okay. Yeah, I think Cooper Flagg, we'll see. I would only pause on him because I think there's going to be, looking 4 years down the line, I feel like this team, and maybe he'll be ready at that time. Maybe he's already ready because everyone seems to love him. But I think right now where it's still an unknown, I'd have to make him the 12th guy to make this team, only because I think they're going to need some more high end talent. But I mean, looking at these wings, like Tatum's going to have to play a really big role. If we're just looking at the name, if Jaylen Brown's probably not going to play because of the bad blood, like Mikal Bridges, like you said, whatever you think of his game, I think he's not an all-star level player. He's like that Derek White level, like right below that great third, fourth guy to have on your team. Like he's versatile. You want him there. Scotty Barnes, I don't think he fits this international
No,
style.
he
I
doesn't
just
make it.
I don't think it's the right fit. Cooper Flag, we'll see. What about Jalen Williams from the Thunder? I think that's an interesting one that we haven't really talked about. I think he's another guy whose star is kind of on the rise. So when we think
Mhm.
about 4 years from now, what does that look like? And he's pretty versatile with his ability to guard kind of across the spectrum. Do you think he's a guy that might fit on this team?
Yeah, I mean, I love his game. I think just in terms of like where he fits, he's kind of like in between a wing and a two guard.
Yeah.
So he's just one of those guys that once again I'm looking at Anthony Edwards versus Jalen Williams. And if I'm Jalen Williams, I'm looking at that. Like, I'm not playing over I'm not playing over Booker. Like, maybe he's cool being a role player, but he's also trending up where 4 years from now, he might just be like too good to be a role player and not be able to play over guys. So I'm trying to figure out the right balance, which is
Well,
why.
here's the thing though. With Jalen Williams, I think it's a little bit different because like Tatum's the face of the Boston Celtics, right? They just
Mhm.
won an NBA championship.
Right.
With Jalen Williams, he's always going to be behind Shea, right? So
Mhm.
he's already, and then him and Chet are, we'll see in the we're going to talk about Chet in just a second, and like so I think for Jalen Williams, like especially where he's coming from, he was, I forget what college he went to, like Santa Clara or something like that, right? Like
Yep.
he came from a small college. He didn't come from like the lineage that we're following with, Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, where it was like number one, number two prospect in high school, go to Cal, go to Duke, go to be the number
Mhm.
3 pick in the NBA draft. Like Jalen's always kind of been climbing under the radar. And so I do think that I wouldn't have as many concerns about him as I'm not going to play type of guy, just because he's had to go through more to get like
Mhm.
where he's at. And even at his best projection, he's definitively either second or third on that Thunder team. Like I don't see a world in which all of a sudden it's like, oh man, is this Jalen's team or Shea's
Right.
team? Like it's very clearly Shea's team. So I think that actually makes it easier for him to look around and be like, oh, I'm in this group of 12, but
Mhm.
I'm eighth on the hierarchy or ninth
Yeah,
on the
I think
hierarchy.
that's a valid argument. I think his best chance of like having a real role on the team is probably if Booker or Ant doesn't play. But I think if I had my druthers, it would be Tatum, it would be Paolo, and it would be Flag, and those would be my wings.
Mhm.
And then I would fill out that last spot with Trey or Bridges because I think both of those
Yeah,
guys would be guys that would be cool not playing or playing a very limited role. And
exactly.
I just love Trey Murphy's shot, man. I think that thing is
Yeah.
deadly.
No, I agree with that. I think Trey and Bridges are the like Tayshaun Prince type roles that from like Olympic teams past, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
that's kind of, or the Andre Iguodala, like that's kind of their role on this team. All right, so let's put a flag on for now, and let's go to the big man, because this is where, to your point of Anthony Davis, like between him and Embiid, if they are healthy and decide they want to play, they're gonna be on this team,
Mhm.
right? And that goes for both of them. I think, despite our feelings about Embiid, if they're healthy and they want to play, Bam is the only certified. This dude's our big that's gonna be there, and he's likely gonna be the starter given kind of the timeline we're on. So let's remove AD and Embiid for a minute, knowing that if they want to play, they'll be there. The only big that I look around and I say is definitely going to be on this team is Chet. I think Chet's definitely going to be on this team in 28. I think that's an easy one. Would you have any pushback on that before we get to the other names?
No, I mean he's shown a lot already in his career, and I think like especially when you look at who's coming from the international side, and you got Victor
Mm-hmm.
Wembanyama, and I think Chet is one of the few guys that just
Oof.
physical profile matches up nicely.
2028 in LA, Wemby versus Chet, Thunder
That's
Spurs
sign me
rivalry.
up, sign me
Love that.
up, baby, sign
All
me up.
in for that.
Yeah, so I think
Uh,
Chet's definitely going to be on that team, and I see the other names that you have on this list, and I'm just
Yeah,
going to
so let me
read
just
them
read it
out.
off real quick for
Okay.
the listeners here. So the other names that I have on here in consideration, this is right now we're living in a world where potentially AD and Embiid are not going to be on this team. And so right now, Bam and Chet, somewhat Paolo are kind of the three bigs that we're looking at on this team. I don't know if Cooper Flag, if we want to consider him a big, but that's basically kind of the four big men that you're looking at. I think Cooper's probably more of a wing. So the other names that I put here were Jalen Duren, Jared Allen. I saw you added Triple J in here, Evan Mobley, and Derek Lively. Not bad, but not great. That's like my. I think that's the best way to look at it.
Who do you think
And
has the best chance of those guys
to be on this team? So once again, I think I'm looking at role, and none of these guys outside of Chet, I think, are dynamic enough that I'm like, okay, no doubt they're on this team. So now I'm looking at who's playing a role. I really hated what I saw at a Triple J in the FIBA, which is the only reason why I didn't add him there. Like, you got to get a rebound, dude. Like we just saw these teams are.
He was the lone big though.
I mean, they had Walker Kessler, but they just chose not to play
his,
him. But
it's always been his issue is that he needs another big next to him.
Yeah.
So
whether
like
Steven Adams or Valanciunas or whatever.
Right. So like they put him in a role that he's always failed at. So maybe if they protect him with another big, then maybe he could actually be better.
That's
and
fair.
He can shoot the three a little bit. So
that's fair. I think for me, I actually looked at Derek Lively as a guy that I think could be on this team. And this is projecting a little bit based off what we just saw, especially in the postseason. And I just think about his activity, his willingness to play a role. He kind of becomes the, Tyson Chandler, DeAndre Jordan of this team.
Yep.
And I think, especially if you're looking at Bam and Chet, who are going to be more dynamic in what they can do, Lively can be that guy that comes in and he's he's that vertical threat. He's super active defensively. He can guard in the perimeter. And then if you have him out there with, an Ant, Booker, I'm trying to think who else we have on this team here that's going to need the shots. You don't have to worry about feeding him, right? Like, he's not going to be a guy. He's going to look to get lobs. And he's going to look to offensive rebound and set screens. Like, that's going to be his role offensively. And so I think that fits in really well. I think other guys that on this list could do that as well. I think Evan Mobley 4 years from now, if he ever, I think his development
that's
the biggest question. Yeah, and I think that's entirely possible. I just think it's gone from, oh man, this guy's coming, to now we're in this mode of like, all right, this next year feels really important for what the trajectory of Evan Mobley. He's already really good, right? Like, let's just be real.
He's really better than Derek Lively.
Yeah, he is. It's to me, it's more just about the role. And so, like, if Evan Mobley is going to be a role player where you have Bam, you have Chet, you have Paolo, what do you envision Evan Mobley's, like, what do you think his role is? If the shooting doesn't develop, what is his role?
I think he can do what Derek Lively does, just also have a slightly more reliable shot. And he's a better playmaker than Lively, better defender than Lively. He's just as big as he is. So I think Mobley is just, if he's cool being the third big on that team versus Lively, I think Lively would probably be more cool being the third big on that team. Then I would put him on that team, no question.
The other thing I would say is I feel like Lively in 4 years, I think Lively's already pretty strong for a rookie.
Yeah, he could be a beast.
That's kind of the other part that I was thinking of is we see, I mean, the international teams have these grown ass men that have been with their international teams for years.
Yeah.
And we saw, like, their bigs, even if they're not the ones that aren't super skilled, are super physical. And that's where I think it could be a little bit of a problem for Mobley. And if we're just, picking nits here on that last spot, I think Lively projects to be a little bit stronger. That's the Jalen Duren case as well too, which I just think he's not nearly as talented as Mobley or Lively.
Right.
So I don't think that he's.
I think that's a pretty good argument for Lively, because he definitely looks strong as shit.
Right, and he's 19 or 20 or whatever he is.
Yeah, and I mean he's a legit 7 feet as well. So if you just need someone that can match up with Wemby, I think he's a pretty good bet as well.
Yeah, so I think it's between the two of them, but I like that. I think that's a good place for the U.S. to be. If they don't have Embiid and they don't have AD, then you're looking at a big man rotation of Bam, Chet, and let's go Lively / Mobley. If we're looking on the wings for potentially next Olympics here, Tatum is going to lead the way. And let's see, who else did we end up putting on here? So we had Paolo as a wing, Flag, and then a Trey / Bridges, one of them getting one of those final spots. And then it really comes down to who would you go with for the guards? We've got Bam and Booker locked in. You probably need 2 point guards. We said Jalen Brunson would be on there. And then it comes down to probably Derek White, Halliburton, maybe Ja. And this is to your point, Hallie's got the inside track. Like
Mhm.
I think this is where potentially right now on August 11th, 2024, we might just default to Halliburton kind of getting that spot. Unless, we'll see what happens with Ja Morant. And maybe, maybe there's a guard we're not even thinking of right now that emerges that could come out. But
Maybe it's
it's
Steph
going to be
Curry.
interesting. Yeah, exactly. This is the thing. If LeBron, Steph, and KD are all in that Embiid AD category, if they're healthy and they decide they want to play and they're still performing, they're on this team. Like
Yeah.
USA is not telling them no. So we'll see, man. But it's going to be really interesting. And this is the point of, and I've seen a lot of people talking about, a lot of ex-players who are like, man, if I'm Tatum, I'm telling USA to fuck off. Like that's basically the sentiment that I've seen from various ex-players talking about Tatum not getting the run or the respect that he
I'm
deserved.
telling Steve Kerr to fuck off. I don't know if I'm telling Team USA to fuck off.
Yeah, so we'll have to see because Tatum looks really, really important to this 2028 team, which is going to need him in a much more dominant role than what he obviously just played. So that's where it gets a little bit weird. We'll see how his feelings settle after taking some time to reflect. But end of the day, Tatum's got another gold. Add it to the resume. This was fun, Greg. Trying to think of this 2028 team. It's going to look, if the seniors are actually done, and Steph Curry even mentioned that this is one and done for him. So he said that once again, things can change in 4 years, but he did say that after the game yesterday that it's one and done.
One more guy I want to throw out there. We didn't mention
Yeah.
Cade Cunningham. I think Cade Cunningham could be on this
I
team.
thought about him as well last minute. That is another guy that I think could potentially, that could be that last point guard spot because he's big, he can shoot.
Yeah.
That's going to be an interesting guy as well. But it's going to be very different, and the world's coming. And I love that this tournament is not a layup anymore. And this was something I was talking about with our buddy Liptak yesterday. Was this tournament was so important for LeBron because being the face of this gold medal team, going up against, this is something Jordan and even Kobe with the Redeem team doesn't really have on their resume when everyone's making the barbershop arguments about who's better. Is LeBron doesn't have the MVP. The MVPs are in Serbia. The MVP is in Greece. They're not on Team USA, and the international level of competition
Except
now
Embiid was on
versus
Team USA.
well, Embiid was on Team yeah, which yeah, I guess you're right. I did forget about that. So they do have a very recent MVP on the team. So I guess you can't completely say that. But some of the best players in the world are not on this team, right? Whereas the Redeem team, and especially going back to 92, it's very clear cut. If you were to power rank the best players in the Olympic tournament, it's probably all 12, just about all 12 USA guys are going to be at the top. Of course, Powell, Manu, a few other guys might slot in at 9, 10, whatever. But that's just not the case for this tournament. So the international level is so much different that I think LeBron felt like this is a legacy moment for me where I can say, like, I'm leading this team, even at my advanced age, against the best in the world that are not necessarily on Team USA. And this is what USA was geared around. Steph, LeBron, KD making their run. And they did it. And it was a fun time watching it.
Yeah, I would say the only guy who was probably a top 10 guy was Petrovic for Croatia in 92. I think
that's fair.
Drazen Petrovic was probably better
He was a
than
beast.
than the end of the guys on Team USA. But
stuff,
I know that we don't. I gotta go because I got dad duty. But one quick thought: I've seen a lot of people, and I've seen you also mention that you think the 92 team was better than this team this year. I don't think it's close. I think this year's team is better than the 92 team.
I didn't say that. I think it's very close between the two. I think that was actually another segment. I got lazy and I was gonna break it down as to like who is the better team, like accomplishment wise at this point and everything. I think it's extremely close. I definitely don't think it's a layup. The 92 team's better. I think it's actually. I think I'm with you. I think this team is probably better, especially when you factor in.
You tweeted it out. You tweeted out that you thought it was the 92, then the Redeem team, and then this team.
I definitely don't think the Redeem team is better. I'll have to go back because I don't think that's what I tweeted out, because I think this team is definitively better than the Redeem team. I think it's between this team and 92 for the best team, especially when you think about where Larry and Magic were at that point.
They were not even close.
That's what I'm saying. And so I think that's the tiebreaker for me, is that between the two of them and Christian Laettner, like, you're kind of playing 9 on 12.
I think this team. I think this team's better than the 92 team.
Yeah, accomplishment wise, I was going to do a breakdown between the two. Maybe I'll still do it, and I'll share it next episode. But I think it's really interesting to look at all the accomplishments of MVPs, Defensive Player of the Year, all NBAs, and where they were at that time in '92 versus this team, and see how that stacks up. So maybe I'll do a little homework. Maybe I'll put that on myself, do a little bit of homework, and I'll bring that to the show next episode. But Team USA locks up the gold. Shout out to the women's for also bringing home the gold. That's going to do it for this episode of Green with Envy. We appreciate you guys for locking in with us. Make sure you are subscribed to us across all of our social medias and especially on YouTube. Please hit that subscribe button so that you never miss an episode or a quick hit that we drop. Any final thoughts here, Greg, before we send the people out?
Bring Yabu back to Boston.
Dancing Bear, baby. Make your way back to Beantown. Would love to see it. That's going to do it for this episode. We will catch you guys later. Peace.
It feels like summer, baby. Oh mama, you feel like summer. New season got me seeing new colors. So fly, the sky will kiss you. Lips so smooth, I miss your issues. Oh mama, you feel like summer. New season got me seeing new colors. Oh my, I'm slipping into white lies, time to miss you. Now you're 3 shots deep that you chase with the Croy. You're looking at me while you're making that noise. I've been trying to stay clean, but you gave me no choice. You're making such a scene that I had to come join.